Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. I'm joined today by Chris McElwain and Sean Conley, and we're here to talk about the game up in Dingwall between Ross County and Celtic. It's been a tough old week, Chris, but I want to start off by talking about the kind of backlash, and I don't mean Celtic fans' backlash. I was in the car yesterday, and I just happened to be listening to BBC Scotland on the radio, and they absolutely dismantled Brendan Rodgers and Celtic. And I thought to myself, have you been watching any of our games other than the Dortmund game this season? There has been a real, it's almost like the knives are out for Brendan and the team. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. I mean, they've kind of gone crazy with the old cliche, you're only as good as your last match or your last result. But I mean, I think you have to be a bit realistic about it. I mean, look, Dortmund was really, I think I described it at the time as a sobering experience, and I stand by that. It wasn't a nice game to watch, but it did lend a sense of perspective about the competition we're in and some of the teams that we're going to come up against. But I think we also said at the time, we said, look, the Dortmund game doesn't represent our entire season, because up to this point, we've had a 100% record in the league. We're breaking clean sheet records. We're playing some great football domestically, and I know we recognise the domestic level, but I mean, I think none of us could have wanted a better season. And we've also, we've got to remember, we have had one win in this Champions League under this new format. Now, I appreciate it was against Bratislava, a team who, like ourselves, don't have, they're not what you'd consider one of the top contenders for the tournament. And they're also, I think, coming into this maybe one of their first, or certainly one of their few appearances in the Champions League. But look, it's still 3 points in this competition. Dortmund, well, I'd never used the term free hit. Dortmund was a game that I think when the draw was made, we would all have looked at that and thought, that's the one. That's the one where if we're ever going to get a real tough match and a tough result, that's probably going to be the one. Not to say I'm happy with the performance on during the week. Absolutely not. I think we could have and should have played better at times. I think the game should be managed better. Understand Brendan's comments about that's the way we play. I think he was being a bit, I don't know about you guys, I thought he was being a bit strategic there, because he's not going to come out and say, no, you're right, we got that wrong and we're going to go and change it all the next time.
Absolutely.
He'll keep his cards close to his chest. And I think he'll learn from that result, and he'll set the team up to try and adhere to our principles, but I think he'll recognise areas where he needs to change. So, yep. Dortmund, and I see the comment coming up, you're right, Dortmund, it's done. We've, the media are having a go at us. Fine. Do you know what? We don't care. We go on to the next game and we continue. In today's game, I think we've got enough about us to go and get a result today.
Today, yeah, absolutely. And this is the big thing that comes to the point, Sean, where a lot of people in the comments probably don't want to continually talk about Dortmund. It's from Dortmund to Dingwall. But obviously they bleed into each other. The game, during the week into this particular match. My point initially was just the backlash. And I don't mean, because, listen, whenever Celtic get beat, you're going to get criticism on platforms like A Celtic State of Mind, coming through on the comments, on social media. That's natural. But the one I want to focus on was just how vehement the criticism was yesterday when I was listening. And it was just by chance. I was in the motor. I've got to confess, I was either going to or coming home from Beetlejuice. I'll not say it a third time. And there it was. And they were ripping strips off of Brendan Rodgers. And I'm thinking to myself, no wonder he's coming back out a wee bit bullish, Sean. I'd do the same.
Yeah, look, we didn't get near the level that we needed to be on the day. And Rodgers, as you mentioned, Chris, he was his post-match was actually the best one. I thought the immediate post-match where he was very specific, and he said, we had this plan to settle into a shape out of possession and blah, blah, blah. And he basically said the players just weren't able to execute that plan. And part of that reason was mistakes. And once Dortmund were quite clinical at the start and the kind of heads went down, we started making more mistakes. I think they had 14 shots, scored 7 goals. So there's a lot to it. It's 7-1, but it's not like it wasn't like a 7-1 that we've had in the past against PSG or Barcelona. It was a little bit harsh, but at the same time, it was one of those self-fulfilling things where heads drop. And I agree with what you're saying, Paul. I don't understand. I think it's a tall poppy thing, isn't it? Like, Rodgers has spent so much time getting put in a pedestal, manager a month, he's top of the league. everyone's talking about how great a manager is, and any chance to cut him at the knees, they're going to take it, especially on EBT, BBC, FC, whatever you want to call it.
The thing is, they're taking a big swoop. They really are taking a big swipe, rather, at Scottish football, because we are, far and away the dominant force, have been now for a generation. So in having their wee digs, their wee schneidi digs at Celtic, what they are indeed doing is absolutely obliterating Scottish football and the quality of the game, because that is the game in which we are the domineering force. So, this is a thing. We should expect it. It still bugs me. And by the way, go and watch the movie. It was a quality sequel, 34 years after the original. There we go. I don't know if it was the Monica Bellucci appearance that made it for me. I'm not quite sure. I'm getting to that age, Chris. Anyway, let's get on to the teams. And we've got the Celtic lineup. Here we go. I was asked during the week to give my predicted 11, and I did so. And it was on the proviso of, Johnston, Taylor making it. And I didn't think Johnston was going to make it. So that was caveated. And I was pretty sure that Taylor was going to be left out through this niggling injury that he's got. So we've got Schmeichel in goals. The back four, you could say, with the injuries, has to pick itself, because we've only got one backup left back. It's Johnston, Trusty, Scales and Valle. In the midfield, big question marks around the midfield during the week. McGregor, Hatate and Engels. And up top, Kuhn, Maeda and Ida. Ida takes the place, of course, of Kyogo, who sits on the bench. Also starting during the week, Bernardo, he's taken a seat on the bench, and the other substitutes are Sinisalo, Palmer, Yang, McKeown, Nawrocki, Forrest and Ralston. Chris, the big one, I think, straight off the bat, Ida up top. It would be almost cliche to say you play Ida against these physical defences. I think there's a wee bit of that. We've seen it last season, what he can do. But also, Kyogo wasn't great during the week, so there's maybe a wee bit of that coming into the thinking of Brendan Rodgers as well. What do you think?
Yeah, never let it be said I don't enjoy a good cliche. I certainly do. And I think I've always said that I felt Ida as your plan B player, when he does come in for games where maybe Kyogo's attributes don't necessarily work quite as effectively. But I think you're maybe right. I think there's a point to be had that, there's two schools of thought. In one sense, I think if a player's had a bad game or really has just been very, very ineffectual, and listen, he wasn't the only one on Wednesday, sometimes it can be good for a manager to take him out the firing line, get him on the bench, say, recharge the batteries, get yourself refocused, etc. The other school of thought is I like to put players right back in the firing line and say, okay, you had a bad game, go there and actually show what you can do. But I think in this case, this game represents for me what a lot of the reasons why Ida was brought in, and it is to provide that alternative option to Kyogo, because it's not just a like for like replacement. Ida brings a completely different style of play from Kyogo, and I think that's important. I would. Oh, you guys are back. You had me worried there for a second. I was in focus.
That threw you, didn't it? Big screen debut. There you go.
God, I thought my haircut was bad before I came on, but geez, I've seen it there. My goodness.
Didn't miss a beat, Chris. That's again.
No, I thought keep going. But yeah, like I say, I think Ida, we've not seen a huge amount from Ida this season. He's come in, he's had some good moments, played, some key moments actually. But I'd like to see, really start to gain a bit of momentum in terms of the way he plays. Maybe look to establish himself a bit more in the side and pose himself a bit more on the side. So it's a good opportunity for him as well. But yeah, it is probably the most notable one outside of the enforced changes. I think the one I'm a bit disappointed. I'd like to see McKeown come in today. We've seen in flashes a lot of them. Well, there you go. Yeah, we've seen in flashes what looks like a lot of promise from this boy, and I'm keen to see how he does, because for me, he was the one that probably had the most to have to prove to certain supporters. I think he was one that came in probably the least amount of fanfare. But I've been really impressed with not only his off the field attitude, but when he's come on, he's looked like somebody who can really contribute in quite a meaningful way. So I'm keen to see him come in and get some minutes today if he can.
Well, obviously there is a tribute to McKeown, and that is Sean Conley wearing, I've got to say, Sean, a Celtic away jersey that is a stunner but it's never looked back on fondly because the season in which it was used. That's a belter of an away top you've got in there. That's the closest I think we have got to replicating the Love Street 86 jersey.
Yeah, it's always the case, though, isn't it? Like, sometimes people go, yeah, that top's ridiculous, or they don't like it like last year's, but then you win a double or treble and it's remembered fondly. And it's a shame as well. I think the gold trim hoops we had at home that season also was a great top, but all we think of when we remember it is Albion Ayeti, and it doesn't really have very fond memories in that sense, right?
Get shiver there, Sean.
I know. The ghost of Albion, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm assuming we're wearing the hoops today, which is interesting. I remember back in the day, you used to wear a lot more away tops because there used to be a rule you had to wear it 5 times in a season to be able to sell it. Now there's just a free-for-all.
Well, that's the thing. That's the big thing, actually, because Ayeti did indeed play against Ross County in one of the worst games in that particular campaign. And I remember after the game, he missed a one-on-one and he turned around with a big smile with his beautiful pearly whites. And I was absolutely fuming afterwards because you know how sometimes players react like that? It's maybe a nervous thing, but there was no fans in the stadium and they beat us 2-0. And that was when a lot of people really started rebelling against what was going on. Thankfully, we got over that. Thankfully, we've moved on. And this is a big thing, Sean. We have been talking about Celtic's form all season, including the first Champions League game, where we were basically obliterating all before us. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's going to very quickly turn into a banned phrase on Acsom because we're using it quite a lot. Simply due to the Dortmund result. We go into Dingwall today. We should be full of confidence because we have been brilliant all season other than that one game.
Yeah, and just looking at the Ross County team, I don't know most of those players, so I did a little check on most of them, and it's basically just made up of lower league English players from like Port Vale and Stockport County and stuff like that. So the only Ronan Hale came from Cliftonville. He's been actually in really good form, so I'll be watching it for him. He scored a belter last week, but the standout name is Josh Nisbet, the centre mid. He was player of the year in the A-League when Central Coast Mariners won that. He's had a few caps for Australia, so he's one I'd watch out for. I was quite surprised when he popped up at Ross County. I thought he'd went to a higher level than that, but so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, other than that, it's a lot of names I don't know from lower league England, so it's a very new team. A lot of players have not played before. It'll be interesting to see how that goes.
I think what you find is there's a clutch of teams in our division that all shop in the same market, don't they? And, Livingston did the same when they were in the league. They would go into the lower English leagues, etc., to try and find something akin to a hidden gem, a player that maybe been at a big club during their academy years, who their career's not really gone the way they would have liked, and I think they do pretty well. I mean, Ross County sitting in 7th position, Don Cowie doing pretty well as a manager there. Their near neighbours, Inverness, Carlisle Thistle, not doing so well. Looking as though they could be teetering on the brink of financial ruin. But again, we go to Dingwall, and a big shout out to all the fans, Chris, who travel up there. I mean, I was looking at the bus times from the CSCs and all that kind of stuff. And of course, our Irish fan base coming over to go to the away games up north. And it is a trek and it's a commitment. And after Tuesday night's disappointment, they still get the scarves on, they jump on the buses and away they go, don't they? Unbelievable.
They do. The one thing that will never change within our club is the support. Honestly, the fan base are just incredible. I mean, it's like every fan base. We've got a few band pots here and there, but the 99.9% of our support is for me is the absolute best in the world, and it's a reputation that they've absolutely deserved. Like I know that there's a reaction. There's always a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to bad results as the word during the week. And I think it was not even necessarily the result. It was just the manner of the performance. It wasn't a nice watch. Yeah. And God, you think about it. I mean, fans going to Dingwall. I mean, they're out in Dortmund. And Ron Acsom was out there along with a few other guys, Natasha, etc. But I thought, they were there. They took it in the absolute right spirit. They kept singing right up until the damage was done, and our fans are absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, like you, I go into the socials sometimes and I see the guys up at 5. Here's me and my son up at 5 in the morning, getting on the bus. It's dark, it's wet, it's probably cold, and they're all in the bus, and it's like, here we go again, and on we go. And I think the fans have the right attitude. It's like, no matter which team in the world you are, you're going to get bad results. You're going to have freak results at times as well. But you get back on the horse and you get back there supporting your team and you support the guys wearing the hoops. I think what we need to see today, though, and for the fans, there needs to be a bit of a reaction. There needs to be a bit of reaction, a bit of anger in the play, a bit of, right, you know what, that was horrible on Wednesday, so let's actually go and, you know, with the greatest respect to Ross County, let's go and take it out on them. And really show what we can do and show that was, you know, okay, maybe that's a level above where we are, but see, domestically, we're the team. We're the number one team, and let's go and prove it and give the fans a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, big shout out. One specific fan who was a long time Acsom contributor is Declan McConville. And, you know, 1 minute you're getting pictures from him and Patrick over in Germany. And then the next minute, you know, he's sending you a picture of his venison pie up in Dingwall. So it's one of the situations with these fans, Chris, and it's, as Tommy said, they're there and they're always there. You take your hat off, you tip your hat to them. They're absolutely phenomenal. They're phenomenal. And I think that with regards to today's trip, you're right. It is almost like a wee bit of payback here because you get nothing back from a 7-1 victory, defeat rather. All you get is a slagging. A lot of people outside of Scottish football then use it as another reason to have a go at Scottish football and the quality of the game up here and all that kind of stuff. We just need to keep our own backyard in order. Now, I'm going to get some comments up before we have a look at the Ross County team. You and Boy Martin, how many holidays does this guy get a year? He's away to Thailand.
I'm starting to think of some sort of international spy
Playboy
or something.
Last Saturday he's in Gracie's watching Charlie McGrew. Today he's away to Thailand, and no matter what, he's on Acsom. He's watching the game, and he reckons we're going to win 5-0. Quinny, Moan the Hoops, always good to see you in the chat. And Jungle Lion, who I think must be up for a testimonial on Acsom. Hurry up, seriously, why is Boyd allowed to do Celtic games still? Contributes now. The reason I'm bringing that up,
we want to look at his face.
Well, you know, it was even like when his own team got a good hiding during the week, he brings Celtic into the equation. He can't help it. He's obsessed, like many of them. You know, going on from that comment, a lot of people slagging Celtic have only seen one Celtic game this season, right? You're talking, you know, your English pundits. And unfortunately over in Ireland as well, Jungle Lion tells us. And I think that it's one of the things, Sean, there's nobody more critical of the Scottish game as Scottish football fans. I mean, we talk about it all the time on Acsom. We don't need someone to watch one game against Dortmund and then judge the entirety of Scottish football in one fell swoop. There's one big thing that seems to have been lost in the madness and the chaos here. Celtic, when you looked at the fixtures, most Celtic fans, I certainly didn't expect to take anything from Dortmund. Yes, we had a bounce about us going into the game. Yes, you've always got to believe, because that's what being a fan's all about. Every single one of those Celtic supporters over in Dortmund on Tuesday night, somewhere within themselves, they would have had that belief and that hope, right? And that positivity. Okay, it was battered within 11 minutes or something. Right, that's fine. But we can actually still, and probably will, if everything goes to plan, qualify for the playoff, Sean. And then we talk about European progression. If we qualify out of this group, you know, finishing between 9th and 24th, that's progression. That's more than we've done for a long time.
100%. Yeah, definitely. And look, I think even after we won 5-1 against Slovan Bratislava, we were all looking ahead at the next 3 fixtures, certainly the next 2 away games, and just being like, we're not expecting anything out of those games anyway. But just having been so good, we were all, maybe it'll be different this time, maybe it'll be different. And because, you know, like it wasn't the same as last year where you're already resigned to losing away to Real Madrid. It wasn't like that, but it was, yeah. And then you just get the reality check. Yep, these guys were Champions League finalists. Yes, they do get to sign young kids that are 20 million players. That's not a market that we're in, and they'll always be ahead of us in that sense. So yeah, it's because it's disappointing, but you are absolutely correct. When it comes to the end of these 8 games, it's not going to be the Dortmund game we're judged against. It's not even going to be the Atalanta away game we're judged against. It's going to be how we did against Young Boys, how we did at home to RB Leipzig, how we did against Dynamo Zagreb. And if we can win these games, if we can win even 3 and get a draw, then that should be enough to get us through, and that's how we'll be judged, is either being successful or not whether we ship 7 goals to Dortmund, which other teams will also do. We're not unique in that. If you want to look at where Scotland is as a benchmark, well, our team that's bottom of our league went away and beat Dynamo Minsk during the week, right? So we've actually, Scottish football has slightly improved, even if we're still getting cuffed 7-1 off of, you could argue, the second best team in Europe and therefore the world. So yeah, I think that's a better perspective, really.
The big thing for me is it always brings into view this big discussion, Chris, about Scottish football, what's wrong, and it's broken, blah, blah, blah. And I think that there's many people within the game who are our, as fans, worst enemies, because they do a lot of things that do not make sense, do not promote the game positively, and don't put Scottish football in a good light. You look at things that have to be sorted away from supporters, because we've got no control over them, and we're talking broadcasting deals, sponsorship deals, etc.
Yeah.
And those at the very top of Scottish football have always struggled, right, to find something that matches the popularity of the Scottish game. When you look at the support of Scottish football, it is incredible across Europe. With regards to that, there is a table that often is shared on the socials, and we're always up there. We're punching. We really are, as a fan base, Scottish football fan base. And I don't think the people in authority often match that kind of ambition that a lot of Scottish fans have. But the clubs are as bad as well. You know, locking out Celtic fans and Rangers fans, and basically turning away the Glasgow dollar, and that continually, for me, it harms them. They can come away with any wee reports to say that, you know, for example, St Mirren have done really, really well. They've got a really high capacity against attendance percentage. It's right up in the 80s. They've done brilliantly, right? So they're saying, oh, we don't need your fans. All right, but what about all the ones down the bottom that are shutting us out as well? They're barely making ends meet. So there's loads of wrong with Scottish football. But one thing I would say that is a mitigating circumstance of Celtic going to Dortmund is, you picture the scene. It's Perth, Dortmund, Dingwall. That's where Celtic are. That's how we need to approach that game in the middle. And you're asking yourself, is Perth the place to prepare for the game? Well, it's got to be, because that's where we are. So there's a lot of things we can do nothing about, Chris, as a football club.
There is, you know, and I think we have to, and I think we largely do recognise that that we are, and maybe it's not the right term, but we're hamstrung by the domestic league and structure that we're in. But I think, you know, you're right. There's a lot that we, as a footballing nation, that we do wrong. I mean, we don't even get the optics right, because there are games selected for TV, like the game last week at St Johnstone. You know, it's televised. It's televised on Sky. I think it was on Sky, or I can't remember which one it was on, but
TNT.
TNT, yeah. But
was it? No, it was Sky. Who knows? Premier.
I think it's Sky.
One of them.
Either way, the point on the coverage is that for the entire match, the camera's focusing on what looks like a nearly empty stand.
Yep.
Right. You know, and that, from an optics standpoint, that's a dreadful advertisement for our game. That's validating all the perceptions that come from down south and come from, further afield, that Scottish football is tin pot. And look, I love Scotland. I want Scottish football to do well. I want our national team to do well. I really want Scottish football to evolve, so that actually, as a Celtic fan, our club reaps some of the benefits from that as well. But the position we're in at the moment is we're a small country with a small league. For me, and I've said this before, and I won't change my view on it, we're overpopulated as a football nation. We've got too many clubs, too many small clubs, which really struggle to stand on their own. And I'm not denigrating history or anything like that. I really get it, but it's almost like self-harming. You know, and I can say that because my club has got a massive fan base and can stand on its own 2 feet, and you know, we generate a lot of income. So we have so many advantages over other clubs. So I really recognise that, and I would never lord over other clubs as a result of that. But I just think, you know, I almost wanted to look inward and say, all right, what are we doing wrong here as a footballing nation, and how do we improve what we do for the benefit of all our clubs? And why can't we recognise that Celtic, and, you know, I have to bring Rangers into it as well, why can't we recognise that these are our two ambassadors in European football at the moment, the only two realistic ambassadors? You're looking for teams like Aberdeen and Hearts and Hibs to get there at some point, but at the moment, Celtic and Rangers carry the can in Europe. Why isn't our association giving us every support it possibly can, so that, you know, our two teams representing Scotland are actually, you know, making a meaningful impact in European football? Yeah, nobody's saying they're going to suddenly change things. We're going to go all right to the latter stages of the competition. But give us support. Schedule our games the right way. Make sure that players are not getting called away for international duty when we're in the middle of a tournament. Make sure that we've got the infrastructure and support and academies, and we've got a reserve league again. These kind of things. But it almost seems like that there's just too many heads butting within our association.
Absolutely.
They can't agree in the colour of the sky at the moment. So it's just it's frustrating, and as a result, it stagnates the progress of clubs like Celtic, of clubs like Rangers and the Aberdeens, etc., who want to go and transcend their current level, and we just keep getting dragged back.
Yeah, absolutely. Big long-term discussions there, because obviously even the transfer developments that are ongoing, I think a lot of clubs will need to really look at things like academies, reserves leagues, etc. The Ross County team, that's a natty wee goalkeeper strip there, nice colour scheme, is as follows. And they're giving us the full names as well. They don't always do that. Ross Laidlaw, Ryan Leake, Ackle Wright, Connor Randall, Ronan Hale, Noah Chilvers, Aidan Denham, Eli Campbell, Casper Lopata, Josh Nisbet, and Mickey Effett. And as you were saying before, Sean, they really are. It's all about having a really tight budget for these teams, and they're scouring the divisions in English football, for example. A completely different recruitment process than Celtic undertake, but they do well. They do well to bring their squad together. They do well to compete. They're sitting 7th in the division. A team like Ross County, their goal every season will be to A, stay in the league, and then B, if they're having a good season, get into that top 6. And they do well to do it. But part of that is when Celtic come to town, as we are this afternoon, they will try and stifle us, won't they? Who do you think's the key man on the park today for Celtic? Because I think it's one of the changes. I think it's Hatate.
That's a good shout. He did put a shift in when he came on. He did look good on Tuesday when he did appear, but I'm still angry at him for the Falkirk performance. And to be frank, he owes me one. Owes us, not me personally, owes us one after the Falkirk performance. So I hope that he does raise his game today, does raise his effort levels, and realizes that sort of performance is not good enough, and that you have to do it every week at Celtic. Otherwise, you're out of the team. And I don't think Bernardo's been dropped. I think just Hatate did look good when he came on Tuesday, and he's been rewarded with a place in the team. And it's probably going to be a midfield battle. Ronan Hale I think he's playing in the number 10 position, so it could be actually quite important, the role that Callum McGregor plays in the shield in our backline. So that'll be an interesting one as well. Ross County play with wing backs, so we'll get to see Valle, what he how he stands up to that. I think Johnson will be fine, but it could be something coming down our left-hand side. But again, we don't know these players, don't know them very well. Every now and again, they'll hit in a Regan Charles Cook, and it's hard to see it coming until it happens, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And when it does, they tend to lose them at the end of that one good season that they have. Absolutely. But yeah, I think Hatate is the guy who's going to pick the lock. It's going to be a tight game. M. Young comes in on the YouTube. I do hope McKeown gets some decent amount of minutes today. And if we are a few ahead by the hour mark, I'd like to see Nawrocki come in for scale so Trusty can play on the left side. That's a good shout because I think we might have to utilise Nawrocki at some point between now and January. Joe Hamilton, let's get back on track and let every other team in the league know that they have no chance. Hail, hail. Loopy33, some great comments, Loopy, off the live streams. Thanks for getting involved. Outclassed, but tactically stupid with all that space between the lines and centre midfielders all on the wrong side of their attacking mids. And Quinny, you're back in. Not sure if Ida has started at home yet this season. If he's starting, it is 99% away from home. Aye, absolutely. You're up against the packed defences, and I think it's all about his physicality as well. Ban the word caveat from Acsom, please. We'll put it on the banned list, Joe. It's going to be up there. We can't describe players as Rolls Royces either. Sean Stout, they were Champions League finalists, but we will be fine with it was just a freak result for us. Onwards and upwards. What was freaky, Sean, and I think it was touched on by Rogers, is that every opportunity they had, they absolutely smashed it. I mean, the finishing was unbelievable. On another night, you're thinking to yourself, you could hit that and it'll hit the post, go over, whatever. But also, one thing I keep going back to is that 3 of the goals were down to us losing possession in dangerous areas, individual errors, and of course, another 2 of them were penalties. So I'm not saying it would have finished 2-1. I think Dortmund had an extra gear that they didn't go up in the second half, but we cannot open ourselves up like that at that level. And that's the one big thing. Individually, these guys, Maeda losing the ball, wouldn't expect that. Valle losing the ball. We can't allow that to happen. And Ian, you thought that Beetlejuice was awful. Watch it again, mate. Watch it again. Right. Predictions, Chris.
Well, I like, I probably need to Claxon this as well, but I let a statement win today, so a bit of a reaction win. I'm going to go for 5-0.
Wow, you agree with you and Boy Martin. What about yourself, Sean?
Well, I'm actually going to say that I think there's a little bit of regression to the mean, a little bit of European hangover. I think the clean sheet record goes and we win 3-1.
3-1. I was about to say it myself. Yes, I think 3-1. I think Ida will get on the score sheet. Hatate will run the show. Let's go. And hopefully at half-time, we've still got a smile on our face and a wee spring in our step. Go and enjoy the first 45 and join us at half-time. And thank you for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.
Yeah.